So welcome to WTF Stories and Advice. I'm Caroline Cranshaw, hypnotherapist, and today we have Dr. Rebecca Stafford, otherwise known as Dr. Habit. Dr. Habit.
Thank you. A delight to be here. Absolutely. Have we mentioned I'm an ex-police officer?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was a nice police officer.
Yeah,
so,
sure you were.
I say, the culture wasn't exactly a great fit for me.
I bet not. Not with how honest you are.
I was really bad at bullshitting. I just hated it. I'm just like undercover, complete crap. Just.
Oh, I'd be so good undercover. Yeah, my partner is an ex-cop too, and he is just such a no bullshit person. And I think that was part of the problem as well. So he's just like too honest.
Now, I think your American listeners will have trouble with my accent on this, so you can translate, because I have actually said this to an American and they didn't understand what I was saying. Yeah. I can scull a jug of beer. Like I can drink a jug of beer really fast. Did you understand?
She can drink a bunch of beer real fast, like beer bong it. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't even like beer.
Yeah.
So there's like extra brownie points, right? Okay. I'm also handy in a fight.
Okay. Crazy always wins.
That's So in New Zealand, police still don't routinely carry firearms.
No.
So, and I do have, obviously you get trained in, combat in the police, very basic training. I also had a background in taekwondo and martial arts anyway, which helps. So despite these were probably the most important qualities as a police officer, that I could drink large amounts of beer really quickly, and I was handy in a fight. Where was I going with this? What was the? Don't fuck with us. That's right.
Wait, yeah. Do you drink beer on the job as a police officer? Is that part? I didn't realize that was part of it.
Caroline, police bars have cheap alcohol.
Yes, my partner said.
Police officers have really high rates of alcoholism.
I believe that. Yeah, my partner said that was like the only time he's been drunk in his life is that when he went to police college and would be pounding the beers.
So on the job, no. After hours, really important skill.
Funny.
Yeah, don't fuck with us stuff. So
one trick I find is good is if you grab the inside of the lip, you hook your nails inside their mouth and pull down. Yeah, people really don't like that. They tend to let go of you when you do that.
That wasn't taught in police college.
Yeah, punch at the throat. Punch the throat, grab the lip, rip the lip down as hard as you can, gouge the eyes.
Well, the techniques were more about disabling people in a way that didn't cause permanent damage.
No, I was going for permanent damage.
Exactly. So, can we talk about self-control yet?
Okay, yeah.
All right. Self-control. It's important. It's useful. Okay.
Give us some tips.
Yeah, we're going to get back into self-control. So self-control is, it's not genetic or fixed. It's not innate. It's actually some learned skills, and it's actually quite easy to alter our self-control for good and ill. As soon as I said around the emotions altering our self-control, like the light bulb went off for you, like especially around emotional eating and stuff like that, and you're smart and insightful, and that's going to lead into some other stuff. But first, the definition, the understanding of self-control is actually wrong. So not only do people usually think of it incorrectly, but it's actually incorrect in my APA dictionary, which is my American Psychological Association dictionary. And the APA is probably the most influential psychology association on the planet. So the commonly used definition is around a measure of the ability to resist immediate gratification, like the marshmallow experiments, how it was used. Now, this is wrong because it implies that resisting immediate gratification, to ignore a smaller reward in front of you and to wait for a larger, bigger reward, the assumption is that is always the best option. And that's not always true. The reality is it's going to be context dependent as to which is the best option, whether you should grab what's in front of you now or wait for something bigger to come along. If it's marshmallows in a lab, sure. If it's studying now so you can get better grades later, sure. And for most habit change, that misunderstanding of self-control does actually work, but not for all contexts. And
No.
so to use another extreme context is, imagine you're in a war zone. Hopefully it's not, your home. Yeah. Fuck those bloody dishes, right?
Well, my kids are home. Hey, it is war zone. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe it is, and so, but for the sake of clarity and lack of insight into Caroline's domestic life,
no, I'm just kidding. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
help me.
So let's think about. And hopefully, you listener are not in an actual, and some people are right now in actual war zones, and hopefully that's not you. But imagine a traditional war zone, and you're skulking around some buildings, and you're the city you're in being bombed. Maybe you're on home ground, and there's invaders, and you come around a corner, and suddenly in front of you, you see a small box of food, maybe marshmallows, and a box of ammo, which you really fucking need.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna grab it and get back behind cover, or are you gonna sit down and wait for 20 minutes for a bigger box of marshmallows and a bigger box of ammunition to turn up? Caroline, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you're gonna grab that shit right now. That's such a good point.
You're gonna fucking grab it and get back under cover.
Because people do always go, oh, well, what if there's something better? Or if I got offered this, then maybe there'll be something else that's even better, so I won't take that opportunity. And this is the discussion I'll have with people quite a bit, especially like they'll meet someone and they're really good, but if they've met them, then there might be someone even better. And it's interesting that you say that.
So to recap, because it's important, the commonly understood meaning of self-control is wrong. That self-control, that to resist immediate gratification is always the best option. Often it is, but not always. And so that's wrong. And so a better definition, like a more effective definition, because we like effectiveness, is self-control being the ability to discern, to choose the most effective option for the context.
Yeah, well, it is.
And sometimes that's going to be grabbing the single marshmallow and ducking for cover. Okay.
Better self-control.
Yeah. If you're in your kitchen, probably not. But, and I say that because I hope your kitchen's not an actual war zone. So this isn't just a theoretical, if accurate, concept, because it fucking matters for self-control, and self-control matters for habit change. So I'm now going to tell you how it matters. So, Caroline, can I use you as a guinea pig?
Sure.
Okay. What colour do you want to be? What colour guinea pig do you want to be? Like one of those red and orange and white ones, or like all black?
Yeah, sure. I'll be the red. I had a red, orange, and white one, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Miss Piggy. Her name was, and then she died because she ate all my hair ribbons.
Oh, God.
And
did
I refused to wear them for years.
They have short fur, or was like a fluffy guinea pig?
Fluffy, long-haired one. Yeah.
Okay.
And she squealed a lot.
Okay. Can you think of something you've been procrastinating on
that
you're willing to share with your
I'm
loyal
I'm
listeners?
an open book, you know me. What am I procrastinating on? I've been procrastinating on hiring someone, but that's sorted itself out yesterday for my business and help.
How about doing your tax? That's a common. Do you enjoy doing your tax?
No, I fucking hate it, but it's all done.
Okay. Well, let's imagine. Okay. Let's just play it. Okay, like you're a guinea pig. I think you can imagine doing your tax. Okay. So.
Hey, I didn't do my taxes for 5 years because I was so freaked out by it. So I can really relate. I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
But I have.
You can imagine. So let's imagine that you've been procrastinating on doing your tax. Okay. And you listening, I'm talking to you also. So finally, you've made a start. You've been procrastinating for ages and ages, and you've been getting all these warning letters, and
I've been there.
Yeah. Anyway, so you finally made a start. Okay. You're 20 minutes in. Okay. What is your self-talk at this point? you're 20 minutes in after having been avoiding it for forever.
This isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Why did I do this before?
You are the perfect guinea pig. What else?
Because I can remember that and doing it and going, and actually it was not that bad. It was not that bad. It didn't take me that long. I mean, I had an accountant help me. But I had built it up in my head of it's going to be this horrible, painful thing, and I was going to owe all this money. And it was like, I actually ended up getting money back, which sounds insane, but New Zealand is a bit different. And thank you, Jesus. That's all I have to say. As a single mother, I was struggling. And it was relief, actually. And my thought was, I'm never going to let myself get back in this situation again, which I didn't.
How did you feel about you're 20 minutes in and you're like, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought, because you built it up into this huge thing and terrible thing in your head. What was your reaction to that? Did you have any thoughts like, oh, I should have started sooner?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Okay.
It wasn't maybe so much 20 minutes in, but once I had done it.
Just a ballpark, yeah.
Yeah. Once I got started and got it all in, it was like this huge feeling of relief, and also realizing how much mental energy that had been tying up for me. That it was like, even though I wasn't consciously thinking about it, it was in the background churning over, and I was all this energy.
But also there was a sense of, why the fuck didn't I start it sooner?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Which I said that, didn't I?
You did. That's what I want to elaborate on.
Okay.
How would you describe how your self-talk around that? I should have fucking started on this sooner.
And then I think I just went into, God, you're such a fucking procrastinator, and you have ADD. And it was interesting because I really struggled with math and that type of stuff in school. And my mother was a tax accountant, right? So she would always...
That's interesting, Caroline.
So she would do all my taxes for me, but then I moved here, and then I didn't have her to do that for me. I definitely went into some thought patterns of, well, you're just a procrastinator and you make things worse for yourself, and you should just get things done right away. And yeah, I definitely went down into this wormhole, but it also, I remember having this moment of thinking, I am just never going to let that happen to me again. I'm never going to get myself in this situation again. And I haven't.
You haven't. Yeah. So there's really a real positive thing from that, which is like, I'm not doing this to myself again, which is fantastic. But coming back to that, but your self-talk around the, oh, I should have done this sooner, I'm such a procrastinator, ADD, can't do tax. How would you describe the tone of that? Was that nasty or nice, how you were talking to yourself?
It definitely was that critical parent voice. Because I've internalized my mother's tax accountant voice going, get it done or you're going to get penalties or nah. But I think I also had to change some of my belief systems and my identity that I can do this by myself. I don't have to have my mommy doing it for me. But I had to change beliefs around, I'm good at maths. I'm good at accounting. I can do these things. Whereas I think before I had a belief that I couldn't. It's like when I came to New Zealand, I really didn't know how to cook because my mother and my grandmothers were all amazing cooks. You go in the kitchen, you're kicked out because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. It's too hard to teach you. So they just wouldn't. So I came here and I was like, oh, I don't cook. And then my husband was a fucking terrible cook. I don't think he is now, my ex-husband now, but awful. He made me hamburger meat on toast, which I was anyways, I learned to cook very quickly, but I had to change my identity as I'm someone who can cook. So I think it's when we have those hard things, we have to start telling ourselves a new story. But to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, it was definitely a critical voice. It was a shaming voice. And shame never really motivates you that well, does it?
What does it do to self-control and marshmallows?
Yes, I see full circle where you're going now. Yeah. You are such
a good student guinea pig. You're amazing.
I remember thinking at the time I really wanted to go buy a pack of cigarettes. And hadn't smoked for years and years, and luckily didn't start smoking, but that was my thought, was I should just buy one pack of cigarettes and just smoke while I'm doing this, and then it'll be much easier. And I had to really fight that.
I mean, that's a sort of fantastic, really sad example. it is. I mean, this is the point that I'm corralling us towards around our habits of self-talk. And very importantly, so you couldn't have given a more perfect example. I mean, you had good things come from that experience.
Yeah.
You know, that scenario that I asked you to imagine. Lots of good things came from that, but you were also able to identify the punitive self-talk that your procrastination generated as well.
Definitely.
And those are our self-talk habits and that punitive self-talk. And I picked this example for a reason because a story you just told me I didn't know before, but it's a really common story. I ask people to imagine something they've been procrastinating in. I ask them to imagine they've been procrastinating on it for ages. They've finally made a start on it. They're about 20 minutes in. What's their self-talk at this point? And it's often, this is not always, but it's often, this isn't actually as hard as I thought. But it also tends to be, I should have started sooner. Oh my God, I've still got that. And then it slips into, oh my God, I've still got so much to do and not enough time, blah, blah, blah. And these are our self-talk habits. So they're automatic. Characteristic of habits is their automaticity. They're automatic.
Yeah.
I said that well. But often what goes hand in hand with the automaticity is they're often subconscious. We learned that we have far more habits than we realise, especially mental habits, because we learned them so long ago, we forgot we learned them.
Yeah.
And I talk to so many people with habits of anxiety. Yes, it's a habit. Habits of stress. Yes, it's a habit. Procrastination. Yes, it's a habit. And they'll start giving me stories, and I start explaining how this is actually learned behaviour, can be changed, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, no, it's just how I am. And always been that way. And they'll give me stories from when they were children as evidence that it's, part of their fixed DNA construct. Speaking of identity. And I go, no, you learned it before then. Tell me about your parents, your caregivers.
Always comes back to that.
Yeah. So we have far more mental habits than we realise, and our self-talk habits, and we're either modelling or reacting against what our parents or caregivers modelled for us. So and most of us we have a punitive, shame-based culture.
Yeah.
And most of us come from families or caregivers that are embedded in that punitive, shame-based cultures. I mean, I'm not even going to get into my family. If you want to do another podcast on that, where do you think my fascination with psychology started? Oh my God, why are people behaving like this around me? Not only, harming others, but so patently harming themselves. That was the part that interested me. I mean, being, assholes to others if there was or destructive to others if there was some apparent benefit to themselves, but they were so patently harming themselves at the same time. And that was what fascinated me even as a child, watching my family just,
Yeah, I know.
Substance abuse, mental health, you name it, all that. Anyway, this is the thing. We haven't really touched on the reason that the immediate marshmallow was used as a test of self-control, even if somewhat misguided, back in the Stanford marshmallow test, is that immediate rewards are the most motivating reward. Broadly speaking, we are more motivated by even small immediate rewards than even massive distant rewards. We are just wired that way. Even the kids with high self-control, they used distraction techniques so they wouldn't be seduced by the single marshmallow, because it had a high motivational valence for them. So, and it's true of punishment as well. We will do more to avoid even a small immediate punishment than huge punishment later on. And, unfortunately, which is why prison isn't a very good deterrent, because that's like later, if you get caught. One that I had a up close and personal experience in the police, and actually fostered my passion for social justice, because what I saw just horrified me.
It's a very racist system, that's for sure.
Anyway, so part of it we get right in our culture, okay, real basic. We understand that rewards increase positive behaviour. So if you want a behaviour to increase, you reward it. So, you want your kid to keep doing something, give them a gold star or give them some praise or something like that. And the idea is if you want them to stop doing something, you give punishment. Okay, so we get that basic concept. So to put it more formally, behaviours that get rewarded get repeated.
Yeah.
If you reward a particular behaviour, it's more likely to happen again. If you punish a particular behaviour, it's less likely to happen again. Okay, so we don't use that language, but we understand fundamental of behaviour science. What we really crap at is understanding which behaviours we're punishing and which behaviours we're rewarding. That's where we come unstuck. Now, when you had made a start on your tax, and we know that good things came from it, but you were engaging in the punitive self-talk, why do you think you were doing that?
Because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And how my family tried to motivate me was punitive, shaming.
To motivate you with punitive, shaming language.
Yes.
Okay. So you learned that.
Yeah.
You incorporated that, became a habit. You got that punitive self-talk. People don't usually consciously think about this because it's habits, it's automatic, it's subconscious. But when they consciously think about, why did I talk to myself like that? There'll be part of your brain thinking, if I beat myself up, if I punish myself for procrastinating, then I'm less likely to procrastinate. I'll be motivated to procrastinate less in future. Do you think that would be the train of logic going on in your subconscious? If I beat myself
possibly.
up, I'm going to punish myself for procrastinating, and that'll help motivate me to procrastinate less in the future. Would that be?
I think by that point I knew enough about psychology, and I was a therapist, that I probably wasn't, maybe subconsciously.
And it is subconscious because it's habits. And so except at the point you were engaging in punitive self-talk, I should have started it sooner, I can't believe I was procrastinated so long on that, and it ended up being so, relatively easy. I even got money back, for God's sake. What were you doing at that point?
I was doing my taxes.
You were doing your taxes. So, and the punitive self-talk, it's punishment, right?
Yeah.
What happens to behaviours that get punished? Are they more or less likely to happen again?
Less likely.
Yes. So we beat ourselves up. You're actually doing your taxes and you're beating yourself up for procrastinating, except you're not procrastinating. You're actually doing your taxes.
So you're beating yourself up for something you did in the past.
With behaviour science, the behaviour that is affected by the reward or punishment is the behaviour that's happening in the instant that the reward or punishment is administered. So when you're beating yourself up for having procrastinated in the past, you are actually working on your taxes. So your subconscious thinks, I'm going to beat myself up for procrastinating in the past, so that will motivate me to procrastinate less in the future, in theory, except that's the exact opposite of what's happening. And you are actually punishing your efforts. And this is why we struggle with habit change. That's it.
That's something I talk to a lot with parents, right? Because they'll nag and nag and nag, and then when the kid finally starts doing it, they'll still keep nagging and yelling at them or shaming them.
You get a lot of, you're right, it's exactly the same. And you get a lot of codependence like that. And we're all living this. And I see there's no such thing as procrastination, no such thing as laziness, doesn't exist as a psychological construct. And there's also no such thing as naughtiness. It doesn't exist as a psychological construct. I heard a really sad example. I was talking to a teacher aide about the behavioural issues at their local school, and she told me that they were getting increasing amounts of behavioural problems each year. Talking to me about one child who had started wetting themselves at school, and a young child. And when the mother was spoken to about it, the mother just sort of said dismissively, "Oh, they'll do anything for attention." And I just felt so sad when I heard that, and I just thought, oh God, give them some positive attention. Just love them so the kids are not so desperate for attention that they will do anything.
And I don't think that's a way of no one does things like that to get attention, because that is, people do things to get negative attention, but I don't believe a child would piss their pants at school to get attention.
probably more through anxiety and stress, but the attitude of the parent, of course, just if I'm having a bad day, I could get really judgmental about that parent, but where did that parent learn those behaviours from? And we all know. So it's up to us all to break that cycle, to shift out of that punitive shame-based culture into one of actual motivation and reward. And it starts with us. And it can start with that habit. To come back to the practical application of it is, so I'm asking you listening to become more conscious of your previously subconscious self-talk habits and notice when you're beating yourself up. Because if you listen to this podcast, I know that you do, because you're part of this culture. So you're part of the answer as well.
Absolutely.
And so I do need to give a cautionary note. So now that you know this, you can't unknow it, but I'm asking you to change your self-talk habits, because back to feeling bad is going to decrease our self-control, make it harder for us to change habits. Feeling good is going to help us with our self-control. As you said right at the start, you're feeling bad, that's all the emotional eating. And the biggest source of feeling bad is under our control. And also I referred to the power of immediate rewards and punishments. You don't get a lot more immediate than our self-talk.
Absolutely.
You can't eat a marshmallow fast enough to beat our self-talk. Self-control is very literal. Our self-control is under our control far more than you've ever been told.
Definitely.
So I'm asking you to be more mindful self-compassion. And the short version I'm going to say is, like, go read some mindful self-compassion book. Dr. Kristen Neff and Chris Germer have put out some mindful self-compassion workbooks. So I don't think you get any better textbook than that right now. So there you go. Don't have to go do a psychology degree. Just go read that. So that's too big to go into. But it's normal to go, oh my God, I'm beating myself up again. And Dr. Habit told me that was really bad. It's going to decrease my self-control. And now I'm useless. Oh my God, I can't do it. I'm having these terrible thoughts. That's normal. So it's normal to, as you are now going to be more conscious of your self-talk habits. So it's normal for it to take a while for those to actually change. So it's also normal to start going into a spiral of starting to beat yourself up for being aware that you're beating yourself up. Oh my God, I'm beating myself. Oh my God, that's terrible. It's going to ruin all my habits. Oh my God, that's going to happen to you. So just try and remember to be mindful of it and step out of that downward spiral as soon as you can. You go, it's normal to start beating myself up as I start to become more conscious of my formerly subconscious self-talk habits. That's normal, which, by the way, is part of common humanity, which is a vital ingredient of mindful self-compassion, which is awesome and wonderful for self-control and habit change. And to give yourself a pat on the back for being more mindful and for noticing yourself for beating yourself up. I mean, there's one way of doing it. So there's more to it. There is ways of bringing in more effective external rewards to help you turn behaviours into habits, and at which point it's automatic and it's internally motivating, and you don't actually need external rewards, although you can still have them if you want, because you can. And we've touched on some ways of doing that already. But that's the big thing. Self-talk habits, be kind to yourself, boost your self-control. There you go.
And tell yourself a new story. One thing I'll tell people is, because so many people, and I know I certainly did, had that real negative voice that would beat me up. And it can be a part of you, another like personality within you, like this internalized critical parent. So what I advise is to talk to that part and also change its voice. So if it starts in and it just seems like thoughts are in our head, we may hear it as a voice or it's just a thought or a feeling, but change it to someone that you wouldn't listen to, right? Like for me, one thing I would advise is changing it to Donald Trump's voice. Am I going to listen to anything Donald Trump has to say about me or my habits? No. I'd be like, fuck you, Donald Trump. I'm not listening to you. Or Mickey Mouse, or you change it to some other voice, and then it becomes ridiculous. And I think, like you said, knowing that it's not going to motivate you, it's just going to make you feel worse. But I think it's changing the beliefs. What I started doing is saying, I love doing my taxes. Doing my taxes is awesome. And I would tell myself that over and over. And I get it done like right away every year.
Yeah, I have a different take on that.
Yeah.
I think that's one way of doing it. I find it more effective. Absolutely, that voice, that inner critic, that punitive voice, I think it's part of us.
Yeah.
And I think of it as more as the wounded child that actually needs tending to and healing rather than further invalidation.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I do parts therapy quite a bit, and that is you talk to the different aspects of our personalities, and there's always some part that's like, no, they can't do that, and you have to negotiate with these different aspects of the personality, but they all have the same goal.
Exactly.
Right? But that part of you is thinking that it's going to motivate you and help you to be a better person because that's what you've learned in childhood. That's how your parents talk to you, and you've just internalized that. So it could be wounded child. It could be, we're a team inside of us. But I think you're right. I think it's having compassion, but just dialoguing with that part. I think you have to do that work first, is talking to that part. Why do you feel that way? How are you trying to help me with this? Because they're always trying to help you, but they're just doing it in ways that aren't very helpful. But I would highly recommend going to a hypnotherapist that is trained in parts therapy because that really can help you uncover it.
Love parts therapy.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, vital. Yeah.
But it's integrating it, and that's the point of psychotherapy too, right? Is to heal that wounded child and reparent yourself. Reparent yourself in a really positive, loving way.
And you raise a really good point around how to treat that punitive voice, and there's lots of different ways of doing that. I love parts therapy, love it, and I also completely agree that we have all these parts of us, but they all have the common goal of trying to keep us alive, basically, but they have different ideas about how to achieve that, and sometimes those ideas clash and cue procrastination, and coming right back full circle, that fear of being seen, that wounded child. I had enough ridicule and criticism in my family growing up. There's probably some past life stuff in there. Well, I know there is. Spirituality, awesome. but they all have the same goals. So I find it to understand that it's just trying to keep you safe. Thank you very much. Sit in the back seat. If you're good, I'll give you an ice cream. Let you play with the guinea pig.
Yeah.
So, on the money. So there's different ways of integrating those parts, and hypnotherapy, parts therapy, good therapist, even create expressive writing, artwork. There's lots of different ways of doing it. So I suggest to anyone listening, explore that and find what works best for you and do several. Have fun.
I think it's that learned helplessness as well. That was a concept in psychology that really spoke to me. And it goes back into that experiment. Was it Martin Segal who did that?
Yeah,
how do you say his name?
I don't know how to pronounce it. Seligman?
Seligman?
It's spelled Seligman. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Martin Seligman, Segal, amazing. But he did I think it was in the 1950s, wasn't it? Where he did these experiments where he took dogs and he put them in cages. Some of the dogs, the cage was completely enclosed. Other dogs, it was like the front of the cage was just a half, right? So like half a door that those dogs could jump out if they wanted to. And then he put electric shocks on the bottom of the cage. The dogs that could jump out, jumped out. And the dogs that couldn't, obviously, were stuck in the cage. And then he took the dogs, I don't know if there was a time period, but then he put them all in cages that had half the door and electrocuted them again. And the dogs that were able to jump out the first time did. But a lot of the dogs who were in the whole cages that weren't able to get out, or that first time, didn't get out. They didn't jump. They just sat there with being shocked. And so it goes into that. A lot of times in childhood, we are helpless and we can't change our circumstances, and things are going on around us that we don't have control over. But we take that belief system into adulthood and we get into relationships and jobs and friendships where we're not helpless, that we can tell those people to go fuck themselves. And
Amen, sister.
And we don't, because when we were children, we weren't able to rescue ourselves. And so that concept just blew my mind. Yes, Rebecca?
I listened to a podcast, I don't know, about a year ago featuring Martin Seligman. And he talked about that. And he mentioned something little known about those learned helplessness, horrible experiments with the dogs. And I didn't know it. But hearing it from the researcher's mouth, yes, they trained a lot of dogs to be helpless. It didn't work with all of the dogs.
Yeah.
And the difference was that the dogs who tended to realise that they could escape the electric shock, now that the gate or whatever it was down, they tended to be stray dogs, rescue dogs. So they'd been living on the streets, whereas the domestic dogs who'd been used to being under human authority. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting, because I think I was raised more like a stray dog.
I was raised by a wolf, a German Shepherd. Yeah.
There is something to that. I would have lots of situations in childhood where I felt helpless, but I always would fight. And I would always say, no, this isn't correct. And I would chase people out with butcher knives. I would do this stuff that a lot of people were quite shocked by. But I just, something innately within me knew I could fight and I needed to fight. And that didn't happen all the time. But what I found interesting is that I could really fight for other people more so than myself. Mm-hmm. And that was something I really had to learn, is like, I'm worthy of defense as much as anybody else. And it's turning that around. But it's fascinating, that learned helplessness. I think the other thing that's been a light bulb for me recently is I've always had this thing where I can do it all myself. And I don't ask for help. And I was interested. I was meditating on it because I sometimes will get these blocks around hiring people to help me. And I don't need to be building websites. Like, that's not my forte. But I'll spend all weekend when really I should do something that's going to bring me more money rather than working on things that isn't something I'm that good at. And it was like thinking about that, realizing that that's something I had to do all as a child, right? I had to do everything myself, and I couldn't really count on other people to do things for me. And so it's a program that I can't ask for help, and that I'm not going to be helped, so I need to do it all myself. And it's just interesting. That's been something that's like going, oh, fuck, that again is a childhood program. Whereas you see people who had a lot of support and help in childhood have no problem asking for help. And they'll hire people and they'll create these teams and they'll do all this stuff. And I'm like, why the fuck haven't I done that? And so it's something I've gotten better at. But I realize that that's just coming from, because that's how I grew up. I had to do things for myself.
I call it the lone wolf syndrome.
Yeah.
Speaking of dogs, I have it myself. I have it myself, and also very much resonate with the fighter thing. But the challenge for us and you listening is to learn to pick your battles, and also for myself, I'm trying to be, because otherwise we exhaust ourselves.
Yeah.
And it wasn't safe to rely on other people. Most people, for me, growing up, so issues around trust. But so to learn to ask for help or to accept help is very vulnerable for us. Very vulnerable. To learn to, for me, in terms of identity, letting go of the lone wolf thing, because I used to take pride in that, and being the lone wolf.
Same.
Great until you're, exhausted and strung out and too proud to ask for help, or too scared to ask for help. But trying to shift from that fighter mentality, I mean, not an accident, I was in the police and handy in a fight, and like you, easier to defend other people than myself. But also to get more discerning about that, so we don't exhaust ourselves fighting all battles for all people. And I'm trying to get more into shifting from a fighter identity. Well, I am doing it, into more of a Zen warrior.
Yeah.
Do it the easy way. And we talked about this before. It's hard letting it be easy. And that's a whole other podcast. I'll stop there.
And that's a question I'll ask myself when I start going, oh, this is going to be so hard, is how, like, if this was easy for me, how would I do it?
Or how can it be, or how can I let it be safe for me to be easy?
Because that's a belief system as well. And I know for me, it's like you have to work hard to make money. Like there's this real work hard theme. And then I would get very mad at people if they relax. It's like, how dare you? You're lazy. And it's really like the fact that I don't allow myself to relax. And I get shitty with other people, but it's like, it's actually a really good thing to relax. You know?
It's a really good thing to relax. It is. And we talked before about how it's funny how triggering the whole PhD thing is. I've had a lot of negative comments from people outside academia about my PhD, especially apologies to any lovely older men listening. But I get a lot of older men trying to take the piss out of my PhD, like, oh, they're not a medical doctor. Like, oh, that's so funny.
Oh, tell me about your education.
That's so funny. And the other theme is people saying, oh, it's easy for you. You're a natural student and you've got something I haven't got. And the implication is, A, that my PhD was easy, and B, that because it was easy, I somehow hadn't earned it. And I didn't really deserve my PhD. And I understand this is coming from a place of their insecurity, that because our real or imagined success holds up a very uncomfortable mirror to the insecurities of others, especially our family. But I felt really fucking annoyed because, first of all, my PhD wasn't exactly easy. And as I said earlier, it tried to kill me many times over, and I got cancer during it. Is that hard enough for you? Am I allowed to keep my PhD? Because I got cancer. How fucked up is that? But this is our culture. This is a punitive shame-based culture, and this is my mantra. We need to cultural change, and it starts with you.
Yeah.
It starts with us.
It definitely does. Well, on that note, is there any other little tips you want to leave people with, or anything? No,
I'm done.
No. Stick a fork in her. She's done. On that happy note, well, thank you so much. And I'm going to put the link down below, or the link in the podcast notes of how you can find Rebecca. If you need to be coached for basically fucking anything, I would say.
You name it.
Check her out, because she's my coach, and I have been to so many people who I found fucking useless. And she's not. She's amazing. So I've never had anyone who can push my buttons quite the right way.
And also go see Caroline as well. She's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty
She's helped me so much.
Yeah. Yep. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star review and share with your friends and tell us your stories. I've got some questions that I'm going to be answering and some cool stories, but we just really appreciate the stuff you send us as well. Bye.
Bye.